Welcome everyone to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a name that is literally synonymous with absolute genius. You hear the name and you immediately think brilliant, right? But we actually aren't going to look at him as this untouchable, flawless superhero of science today. Instead, we're exploring Albert Einstein as, well, the ultimate underdog. It's really a story about a person who faced just incredible, overwhelming odds and early struggles, yet somehow managed to fundamentally change our whole human world. It's a journey of absolute triumph, and I'm so excited to guide you through uncovering exactly how he pulled it off.
Okay, let's dive into this. Did you know the ultimate symbol of genius actually couldn't speak for his first 3 years? It sounds impossible, right? But the boy who was born in the famous city of Ulm, Germany on March 14, 1879, to Hermann Einstein and Pauline Koch, was met with total silence in his early development. For the first 3 whole years of his life, Albert Einstein could not even speak. And, this wasn't just some minor delay. This was a profound early struggle that deeply concerned his family and instantly set him apart from the other kids in a way that, frankly, no one would have envied.
And man, those early struggles really only compounded when the Einstein family relocated to Munich, Germany back in 1885. It was during this really difficult childhood period that his developmental delays led to some incredibly harsh treatment. In fact, our source material reveals he was actually known during his childhood by the term voodoo. Just imagine that for a second. The mind that would literally one day unlock the secrets of the universe was written off so early on and known by a term basically meant to mock his intelligence. It's honestly heartbreaking to see the deeply harsh, dismissive labels placed on him by his own teachers of all people. They actually called him retarded and a stupid child. Our source notes that this treatment led him to become incredibly disappointed, which of course it would. But contrast that with his ultimate destiny, right? A world-famous Nobel laureate. And he achieved this unbelievable legacy because he simply refused to give up. Through sheer hard work and dedication, he fought his way through the very educational system that had labeled him a total failure.
Let's move to the timeline here and see how this all builds, because we can really trace this relentless dedication. We start at age 6, when he was finally admitted to school, already fighting against those awful early labels. But he passed his school education and just kept pushing forward. He eventually gained admission to Zurich's Technical College to pursue his technical education, and he graduated in 1901. Then, jumping ahead to age 26, we hit this monumental milestone where he publishes a research paper that literally changes everything. So we're seeing this steady, chronological climb of a struggling student completely refusing to be defined by his childhood critics.
But, even after graduating in 1901, success definitely wasn't immediate. He became a citizen of Switzerland and was kind of just wandering, searching for employment opportunities. It was a super humble beginning. Finally, a well-wishing friend helped him land a job working as a technical assistant at the patent office in Bern. And it was right there, in that seemingly ordinary day job, that his scientific discoveries really began to take shape. The gears in his mind just started turning, and his inventions began to slowly form right out of the quiet backdrop of his daily work.
So, the crucial point is what actually happened when he turned 26. He was successful in publishing a research paper on the theory of relativity. And this is where we get the wildly famous formula E equals mc squared. This falls perfectly within his theory and established what our source refers to as the principle of relativity. And guys, this single paper brought him worldwide praise. He literally went from being the boy who couldn't speak, the kid called stupid, to becoming world famous practically overnight.
Now, E equals mc squared can feel like just abstract math to a lot of us, but I want to ground it with this striking quote directly from our source material. Einstein had proved from this formula that, theoretically, a village can be converted into power. Just let the scale of that sink in for a second. We aren't just talking about numbers on a chalkboard here. We're talking about uncovering the immense, hidden power locked inside the fundamental fabric of reality itself. It's a breathtaking concept that completely revolutionized human understanding. Which brings us to 1921. This marks an absolute peak in the scientific field. In 1921, Albert Einstein was honored with the Nobel Prize in Physics, but here's the surprising fact. This wasn't even for the theory of relativity. It was actually for his proposed photoelectric effect theory. He had pushed himself to take even more leaps in the scientific field, fundamentally proving all those childhood doubters wrong on literally the world's biggest intellectual stage. As we transition into his later years, Einstein's scientific journey continued right toward the very last moments of his life. He continued his deep investigations into the unified field theory, which was a process he was intensely dedicated to. But he was also deeply principled outside of science. When a proposal was made to Einstein to become the second president of Israel, he didn't even accept it. He chose to remain focused on his scientific pursuits and his personal values over political power.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly who he was as a person. He had an incredibly high personality, one our source describes as a mountain no other scientists have yet claimed. He just had this saint-like personality among his peers. He was a big pacifist, a peace leader, a Democrat, and a socialist who strongly advocated for positive change. And he held fast to these peaceful ideals throughout his entire life, right up until his continuous scientific journey ended with his passing in Princeton, New Jersey on April 18, 1955.
Now, you might think the story ends right there, in Princeton in 1955. But actually, there is a fascinating and honestly slightly mysterious epilogue regarding the physical makeup of his mind after his passing. So we're going to pivot now to look at the very brain that overcame so many childhood obstacles to formulate E equals mc squared.
The timeline of what happened next is quite bizarre, to be honest. The brain of this great scientist was actually kept protected for 30 years after his death. For 3 entire decades, it was carefully preserved. It wasn't until much, much later that a neurosurgeon was finally able to study and analyze the unique physical structure of this remarkable organ.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what the neurosurgeon discovered. It's an incredible physical fact. When comparing his brain to a normal human brain, they found that Einstein's brain contained 73% more glial cells. So it turns out that the physical structure of his mind was fundamentally different. To put that into perspective, this staggering biological detail adds a whole new layer of wonder to his genius, showing that the physical makeup of his brain was just as exceptional as his theories. So we arrive at our final thought. What can we learn from a genius who simply refused to give up? I really want you to think about that. This is the story of a man whose family moved early on, who was mocked as Buddha, who literally couldn't speak, and who was told by his teachers that he was stupid. Yet he pushed through, transformed the entire scientific world with relativity, and left behind a legacy and a highly unique brain that we are still marveling at today. I believe we'll forever learn from this great scientist, Democrat, and pacifist. His story absolutely proves that such a great mind will truly remain immortal in our human world. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it leaves you as inspired as it leaves me.